got a lot of great college football games to discuss this week on the Blitz. Here to help me do so, as they always are, Ross, the boss, Benjamin, and Ralph Michaels with his pen. We are here. Guys, a lot of big games, as always. Like I said, Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas, USC, Iowa, Notre Dame, Pitt. How about some interesting comments from Pat Narduzzi earlier in the week? Is Pitt punting on this game? I've never heard a coach be that forthright before, I don't think. And then Penn State, Michigan State, a power rankings versus spot argument to be had there. Ross, I'm going to go to you first here as we open with Alabama and Oklahoma. I know nobody really wants to hear me come on in and say, you know what? I power rate this game close to market. At least at the open, I did. But I was on earlier today with Joe Ranieri and Art DeCesar. Art giving us the view from the other side of the counter. And he mentioned that it's been a steady stream of Oklahoma money so far. And you look at the Wager Talk odds screen, yes, I'm even seeing a 5.5 pop here at FanDuel, minus 5.5 for Alabama. If this gets any lower, I kind of want to punch back at the market with Alabama. I know some of these wins, and we had a big discussion about this last week, the margin of victories necessarily haven't been that impressive for Alabama, and yards per game wise, it's not that impressive. But I don't know, man. Oklahoma, even off a bye, I get it's a good spot, but do we buy the Sooners heading to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, all due respect to Art and the rest of the sportsbook managers we have on Wager Talk TV, they provide very valuable information. But let's not forget, folks, that's at his sportsbook. It doesn't necessarily mean all the sportsbooks are getting hit with Oklahoma action. And just keep that in mind. And again, it's good no point. Disrespect to any one of those gentlemen, So I sort of like Oklahoma here. I mean, Alabama, this is not going to be part of my card. This is a tough call. But given that I have to form an opinion and a lean, I would lean toward Oklahoma just because of the fact Alabama, by the way, I had them as a 5% best bet last week at minus 10, and they win by 11. I had it all the way, guys, all the way, But a tough game against LSU, and now they come back against Oklahoma this week, a hungry Oklahoma team. Alabama, to me, can almost afford one more loss in as long as they win out the rest of the way, and I think that they will. Even having said that, Oklahoma, to me, is in one of those, if they lose this game, they're pretty much, in my opinion, going to be out of contention for a college football playoff spot. So just based on that alone, this game has all the makings of one that will go down to the wire. And I like the Oklahoma Sooners here. You can get a 6 with them still. There's a couple 5.5s out there, but Oklahoma plus the 6 against Alabama.
All right. That's one opinion there. Ralph, we see some people in the chat. I see RJ, who always joins with us, joins us live here. Of course, we go live every 1 p.m. Eastern Thursday, although next week, I believe it is, will be a little different. We're going to be going Wednesday, the week of Thanksgiving. RJ, though, is hopped in the chat. He likes Oklahoma's team total over 19.5, says he hasn't bet it quite yet, though. What do you think about this game, Ralph, as the Sooners? Well, I think the spot does scream Oklahoma, to Ross's point. Desperation, rested, but I still think Bama's the better team, personally.
I'm going to disagree. I think the spot favors Alabama. Yes, Oklahoma's off a bye, but let's remember, Alabama had a bye the week before LSU, and then they weren't challenged last week. It was a walkover game where they, led double digits the whole way. Now this team has 2 losses. They have to go on the road. And remember, they play Texas in a neutral. Then their only other 2 road games. This is only their 3rd true road game. They went to South Carolina. They only put up 319 yards. They went to Tennessee. They won the game, but they got outgained by 105 yards and only put up 351 yards. The reason I will fade Oklahoma is simply look at their last 2 games. Prior to playing Mississippi, the worst game statistically they had was Texas, and they allowed 302 yards. Every other team was held to 290 or less. The last 2 weeks, they allowed 431 yards to Mississippi, 456 yards to Tennessee. Those quarterbacks threw for 315 and 393 yards. And we have this guy over in, for the Crimson Tide, some guy named Ty Simpson or something. That's a 21-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I leaned Alabama here. I'm not going to make it to my card. In fact, it didn't even make my top 15 for the week. But again, it is a clear opinion for me for on the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, Oklahoma might still be without one of their best defenders here. It's also interesting, and I feel the three of us had this discussion a couple weeks ago, that Oklahoma had those great defensive numbers early in the season, still going to that Ole Miss game. But it was largely a byproduct of who they had played. This is going to be a very tough test for that Oklahoma defense, I think, on the road.
Let me argue a little bit with you, Brian. The Alabama defense is number 12 in the country, holding the opponents to under what they average in other games. In the last 3 games, they held Tennessee to a season low, 410 yards, and they held LSU to a season low, 232 yards. I think the defense is still shining. It just happens that they're playing very good offenses of late. So while the yardage goes up, if you look compared to what they average, they're still stellar performances.
Yeah, I apologize if I misspoke. I meant the Oklahoma defense might be overrated from early in the season. I think the Bama defense, is good. Go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, Ralph, how many yards did they allow versus Tennessee?
410.
Yeah, well, they really held them. I know that that's well below their season average, but they really held them down in that game.
Ross, if you hold them under their season average, I mean.
I get it. But the difference between Tennessee and Oklahoma, Tennessee's got a better offense, but it's night and day comparing both defenses. So, good point, Ralph. I got to give you a hard time. You know that. So, but those season averages and what teams do against other teams and holding them below season average are definitely very valuable points to make when you're handicapping the game.
Yep, that is R. Mason Thomas that could be out. I know Venables said he expects to get some guys back in this game after the bye week. R. Mason Thomas is still very, very questionable. Our defensive end, he got hurt returning a fumble for a touchdown in that win over Tennessee 2 weeks ago. And Ralph, great point you made about Ty Simpson. The touchdown interception ratio is obviously phenomenal, 21-1. Guys completing 67% of his passes.
He looked off to me last week, though, guys, didn't he? I mean, just my opinion. I watched the game to its entirety because I had stake in it. But that was one of the worst games he's played in recent memory this past year. He just looked like he was inaccurate and he was missing. He was just behind on some throws, inaccurate on other ones. I didn't like the way he looked last week. Now, LSU's defense is pretty good, but so is Oklahoma. But just you guys' thoughts on what you witnessed, if you witnessed anything at all.
I did not watch that game. So all I did was reading, and the stories I read, no one pointed that out to me. So, but you make a good point. You look now. He was 22 of 36, 14 incompletions isn't horrible, but that was after at South Carolina. He was 24 of 43. He had 20 incompletions. So it's not the gaudy numbers that he put up early. So that is a good point, Ross.
Yeah, and Ross, obviously, you joked about it at the outset, how you had it the whole way. It felt a little. That's one of those ones that after you're done, I've been in your position. You're watching the game for 3.5 hours. It feels like your body's been through it's just an emotional war. LSU missed a field goal in that game. And Bama needed that for obviously they were fine to win, but they needed that for the cover. So it was not a dominant Bama performance.
You just never felt that LSU was going to win that game because their offense is terrible.
Yes.
They can't get out of their own way. Nussmeier gets benched. They bring in a sophomore quarterback who I thought did a better job than Nussmeier did. But Ralph said that Alabama led comfortably by double digits most of the way, but they really weren't covering comfortably for most of the way. So it was right around the number where it could have went either way as far as the spread went.
It's funny, Ross, the games that you watch that you're just looking at scores and you think double digit lead. The games that you bet, screw the lead. You're paying attention to what the spread is. So a different mindset if you don't have skin in the game, like you said.
Right. And you didn't have skin in the game. You didn't watch the game. And there's several occasions where I do the same, Ralph, where if I don't have skin in the game, I might be watching a lower profile matchup that I need more than two high profile teams going against each other.
Yeah, look, anyone who's watched the game with me knows this. I never think it's over. I always think the bottom is just minutes away from dropping. I wish they could all be like last night with Central Michigan. They're up 38-13 with 9 minutes left. It takes that kind of advantage, being up 20, having a team on the money line, being up 25 with 9 minutes left. And I'm like, I think this might get home.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you have an under, do you watch the first half? I can't. If I have an under, I cannot watch the first half. I'll look at scores, I'll see what happens, but I just get so emotionally drained that I have to have like a 21-point margin to watch the whole fourth quarter when I have an under.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ralph. Unders are tough to squeeze for. I use a lot of them, but I pretty much do the same thing you do. I'm looking at my phone because sitting there hoping both teams go 3 and out is exasperating, Yeah, don't even get me started on betting unders in basketball. One last point here, and then we're going to move on to the other big matchup in the SEC. I know a lot of you guys are talking about it, but Oklahoma, for what it's worth, does have the better yards per play margin relative to Alabama. Ralph, I know you referenced that statistic a lot. All right. That's one big SEC game down here on the Blitz. Keep those comments coming, guys, by the way. We will, after we get through our rundown, get to your questions in the chat. That is the benefit of catching us live here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. But we got to talk Texas and Georgia. Texas, who so many people were writing off after that slow start to the season, they are still viable, Ross, for the college football playoff. They would need... I don't know if they need to win both this game and A&M. They definitely need to win one of them. We know that. If they lose both of them, they're out. So I know you're going to be talking about this in our best bet segment. Of course, that comes at the end of the show. Everybody, Ralph, Ross, and I will all be sharing a best bet. So do you want me to go to – I can go to if you want to save your thoughts for the end of the show, I can go to Ralph here. No, my best bet's going to be on the total in this game, but – it's going to come down to who could run the ball better and who could stop the run. Both teams very good against the run. Georgia is a real run-heavy team. 57% of their offensive plays are runs. So I think the game comes down to the ability to run the ball. And Texas struggles running the ball. If you look at their offensive rushing numbers, not very good. And so, I mean, if they have to become one-dimensional, they're going to be playing uphill, especially if they fall behind in the game. So, yeah, that's all I got to offer in that regard. But I will have a winning total for you folks, so stay tuned for that at the end of the show.
Stay tuned for that. Plus, Ralph and I have best bets as well. Ralph, what do you think here? Texas and Georgia, obviously a very big matchup here. Texas, like I said, I don't know if they need to have it, but they can't afford to get whacked.
Oh, I think they if they lose one more, I don't think Texas is in the way they're going. You look at their stat profile, guys. When you look at conference only games, okay, Georgia is number 18 plus 89 yards per game. Texas is number 103. They're getting outgained by 60 yards per game in conference action. That is a 150-yard difference versus Georgia. And Georgia's played the tougher schedule. You look at the Texas Longhorns. Ross mentioned struggling against the run. Well, in their last 5 games, Florida, 52 yards, 2.0 yards per carry.
No,
Kentucky,
they struggled.
47.
I'm sorry, Ralph, struggled running the ball, not stopping the run.
I'm sorry. I am reading their rushing numbers. My apologies. Yeah. That's just me being problem. Old and senile. I misspoke, Ross. I heard you right. Here's what I tell my friends. You just gotta know what I mean and not listen to what I say. So Texas's rush offense over their last 5 games. Florida, 52 yards, 2.0. Kentucky, 47 yards, 1.7. Mississippi State, 72 yards, 2.3. Vanderbilt at home, 100 yards, 3.7. They're not going to be able to rush on Georgia. You look at the defense. 3 of the last 5 games, they've given up over 423 yards. And you look at their schedule. Okay. Brian, hold up how many winning teams I'm going to give you here in the SEC. Florida?
Okay.
No. Oklahoma? Yes. Kentucky? No. Mississippi State? No. And Vanderbilt. And they beat Vanderbilt by 3 hosting Vandy. So Georgia has a chance to make my card. I think they're that good. I think they have the offense and defensive line edges. They haven't gotten much pressure. That is a negative because we've seen their quarterback struggle with pressure, and he wasn't sacked at all against Vandy. So maybe the O-line's playing better. I only watched bits and pieces of that, but a couple other games against Florida and Mississippi State, they were sacked 5 and 6 times respectively. Georgia, for me, has a chance to actually make my card.
Yeah, remember, guys, Georgia has lost only once in its last, 33, 34 home games, and that was earlier this year to Alabama, and that took falling into a really bad hole in the first half. Remember, they shut Alabama out in the second half of that game. Of course, slow starts have been an issue for the Dogs this season, although not last week. I think Kirby was out to prove a point in that Mississippi State game. I thought that was the most complete effort we've seen from the Dogs all season. So Georgia, Texas, there you go. I see some questions coming in about Iowa and USC. It just so happens that will be the next game on our rundown, guys, as we move from the SEC to the Big Ten. We had a big discussion last week about the Oregon-Iowa matchup. Iowa played their hearts out in that one. It just wasn't enough. They lose on a last-second field goal after laying it all on the line. That was it wound up being an ideal spot. The weather favored Iowa. Oregon had a couple receivers ruled out late, and now Iowa loses. Again, they thought they had them for a little bit. They have to turn around. They have to fly out west and take on USC. Although, ironically enough, the weather, you don't think weather is going to be an issue in Southern California. Apparently, there's going to be some rain in the forecast. So Iowa always bringing weather wherever they go. But, Ross, Iowa's got to be careful here because they can't compete in a shootout with this USC offense.
Yeah. I listened to Ralph on Wager Talk today break down this game, which I thought he did a magnificent job. And he brought up a couple good points. He brought up the fact that, Iowa, you look at the game against Indiana, who has an explosive offense, and they held them to 20 points at home. Again, last week against Oregon, I think they held their own as well. But Ralph also said when they go on the road, it's not very similar how they perform at home. And I just think, I said this last week, I'll say it again, Iowa's offensive numbers are improved this year, but they're a little bit when it comes to points per game anyway. But I just think that points per game average that they're showing this year is a little bit askew because they've created a lot of points defensively themselves between creating turnovers and giving their offense a short field to work with, returns for touchdowns, whether it be fumble return, interception return, or punt return. Their special teams continue to shine. But here's the thing, Ralph also said that USC is very underrated defensively. We think of them as a very good offensive team, which they are. Now, they're not a great defense, but they're not horrible by the same stretch. And I think going on the road, and the other thing to keep in mind, Iowa lost a heartbreaker last week.
Yes.
On the last play of the game against Oregon. And now they have to go on the road and take on USC. Like you said, Brian, travel across 2 time zones. It's going to be raining, but big difference between rain and 30 degrees like it was last week in Iowa and rain in 75 to 80 degrees like it'll be in Southern California. So I have a lean toward USC in this game latest 6.5 over Iowa.
All right, Ralph. Ross referenced your excellent breakdown earlier this week on Wager Talk today. He also referenced the USC defense. Yeah, they held Northwestern to just 28 yards rushing and 3 points in the second half last week. So tell me about it. For those of you who may missed your breakdown on Wager Talk today, give it to us here again on the Blitz. USC.
Really, it's home road dichotomies here. You look at Iowa. And hell yeah, the defense impressed me against Indiana. Hell yeah, the defense impressed me against Oregon. But we all know it's so much different having that elite defense with your fans where the players can't hear the play call and you get a few extra penalties jumping off sides. And those are the type of things that you lose. So, both of those great defensive performances against Iowa were at home. Their other road game at Iowa State, they had 214 yards. Against Rutgers, they put up 38 points, but only had 348 yards against a crappy Rutgers defense. And then they played one good road game, and that was against Wisconsin. On the USC side, the offense is legit. I mean, they are my number one ranked offense, and they're also number one averaging more than their opponents allow. And if you look at the performance, the Nebraska game, they only put 21 points up, but they still had a 51-yard edge. Northwestern, they end up having a 202-yard edge. Home against Michigan, a 173-yard edge. So home to road, at home, they are outgaining foes by 262 yards per game. On the road, they're outgaining foes by 24 yards per game, a basically 240-yard per game difference in their home road dichotomy. And then you look at the two road games they lose. At Illinois, they still had 490 yards. And at Notre Dame, they still had 396 yards. I was wrong on Iowa twice. That was at home. I'm going to stick to my guns. USC pulls away quick because Ross basically said it. Will Iowa offense score enough to keep close, or will USC's defense give up enough to keep it close? I favor that the USC defense will outperform the Iowa offense.
Okay, there you go. Yes, certainly, guys, since the Big Ten expanded, it's, consistently these teams struggle when having to cross two times. I was looking at Washington last week, losing to Wisconsin, that downtrodden program. I mean, that says it all here. Yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but it has been a struggle. And Iowa, it's a tough spot getting off the mat after the close loss to Oregon.
And you did bring it up, Brian. I mean, I actually went in to check my mail, and the headlines on the top were LA and San Francisco torrential rains, historic rains. Saturday, it's like flash flood warnings, downpours, thunderstorms. The winds, though, are 15 miles an hour or less. If they get over 15 miles an hour, it will affect USC's offense. So if you are going to play the game, do make sure you stay tuned for the weather and get that late wind report to make sure it didn't shift by a few hours where it can clearly impact the Trojans' pass game.
And the market will react to that, of course. Sometimes, though, Ross, it overreacts. We always see that in the end. Like, I always think of like these. It's not an apples to apples comparison, but I always think of it whenever there's the threat of snow in an NFL game, you see that total come way down, and then the teams still find a way to fly.
And it's this total is pretty much, if I remember correctly, and I'll look again, but if I remember correctly, it's pretty much held steady at 48, 49 in that area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's some 48s popping, but yeah, pretty much 48.5 across the board.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to bet the under, I think that based on the weather reports that you guys reflected on, now is the time to do so. Because if people probably don't look at, a lot of bettors don't look at weather reports till the day of the game, and if that weather forecast for Saturday is similar to what we're seeing now, I fully expect to see some under money here, know. So, and Ralph makes a great point. I mean, if the wind goes over 15 miles an hour, it favors Iowa too, because Iowa's going to run the ball and they're going to be able, and it takes away a major part of USC's offense, which is their passing game.
I don't know why this just popped in my mind here, but I'm seeing USC versus Iowa. I remember it was a little bit more than 20 years ago now. And I remember Ralph might remember this a little bit, being an Ohio State fan. These teams, USC and Iowa, played in the Orange Bowl. That was the year that idiot, Skip Bayless, kept saying every week that Ohio State needed to pass up the opportunity to play in the championship game so 2-loss USC could be in instead against Miami. That was the year Ohio State beat Miami. I don't know if you remember that.
It was
on the radio.
2002.
Yes.
USC was ranked number 5. Iowa was ranked number 3. USC was a 4.5-point favorite. They won the game.
They killed them
38-17.
Yeah, I remember USC was a good team, but I remember, Skip us that Ohio State should do the quote honorable thing and turn down the opportunity to play for that. Where does this guy come from? All right, that's enough about Iowa and USC, and certainly enough about Skip Bayless. Notre Dame and Pitt. I threw this game on our rundown because I don't know if you guys caught the comments from Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi earlier in the week. But, okay, I'll go to you then, Ross, first, because it seems like you're ready to talk about. Boy, does it seem like he's willing to punt on this game, huh?
Well, it's not he's willing to punt. It's the Pittsburgh media said it's a must-win game for the Panthers, and that's the furthest thing from the truth because, yeah, they're 7-2, and if they lose this game, a 3-loss team, right? You would think from a rational standpoint, a 3-loss team is, out of the equation for the college football playoffs. But remember, they're 5-1 in the ACC. So if they lose this game, they're still alive to win an ACC title. Yep. If they win the ACC title, they go to the college football playoffs. So, and it's not like they need style points here either, or they, a 100-point loss isn't going to make their chances of winning an ACC title or a college football playoff berth possibly. It's not going to make any difference like it would with other teams in situation. Now, Notre Dame, on the other hand, they're 7-2. You could be hard pressed to take an independent team like Notre Dame, as good as they've been playing, highly as ranked as they are. If they lose as a double-digit underdog on the road at Pitt, it's gonna, you could virtually kiss their playoff chances goodbye. So let's let me break it down real quickly. And by the way, Pitt finishes with Georgia Tech and Miami of Florida. It's not going to be a picnic, even if they lose this team to win those last two, right? So their only loss was 34-27 at home against Louisville earlier this season, only loss in the ACC. And then they were upset in the rivalry game at West Virginia. Notre Dame opened 0-2, 7 wins in a row since. Their 2 losses come against Miami, number 15 in the country, and Texas A&M, 9-0 and number 3 in the country. And those 2 losses came by a combined 4 points. During the 7-game win streak, they've outscored opponents by 10 points or more on each occasion, and they were a plus 12 turnover differential, 389 yards or more of total offense in their last 8. During their last 6, defensively, Notre Dame was allowing just 12 points a game and a little over 300 yards per contest. And I really like the emergence of freshman quarterback C.J. Carr. He's been a catalyst to this winning streak and success that Notre Dame has enjoyed. Look, the guy's completing 67% of his passes and 19 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. A dynamic run game with Jeremiah Love and Darian Price. So I like Notre Dame here. I think I like them an awful lot too, Brian.
Yeah, I've seen some people that echo those same sentiments. And if you're not clear on what we're talking about, these comments, and then I'll throw it to Ralph here. Here were the exact comments from Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi. Ross is correct. He was asked directly about whether or not this was a must-win game for his Pitt team. And Narduzzi responded, quote, absolutely not. It is not an ACC game. I'm glad you brought that up. Not an ACC game. Make that very clear. I would gladly be beat 103 or 110-10 in that game. They can put up 100 on us as long as we win the next 2 after that. Now, he did then later come and say, hey, you can play this game at 7 a.m. over at the field house or in the parking lot. Doesn't matter what time. Doesn't matter who we're playing against. Our guys are coming to play, period. He might have realized what he had said and then was trying to sum up the curve. So what do you think here, Ralph, I guess it's not that important to Pitt. It's very important to Notre Dame. They obviously need to win, even though the two are good teams. Can Pitt hang? I mean, has there been an overreaction to these comments? Because they're going to talk about this a lot on the college game days of the world, and I think a lot of people are expecting Pitt to get taken to the woodshed here by a surging Fighting Irish team.
I think he's just trying to temper a young team. Remember, game day is going to be at Pittsburgh. So yes. Remember we joked about, I said it doesn't mean shit to Ohio State and Georgia a couple of weeks ago. When you have a unique setting like Pittsburgh, when game day's there, it's a thrill for the fans and the players. It's enough that I think Pittsburgh can get a bump. While I don't like Pittsburgh full game, I may actually play them a little bit for the first quarter or first half. And let's go back and remember this. They win their first two games. There's a lot of hype for Pittsburgh this year. Eli Holstein was there. And then what happens? Holstein gets hurt in the Boston College game, and they bring in a true freshman, Mason Heinzel, and everyone thought their season's over. All they've done the last 4 weeks is top 450 yards 3 times. They're averaging 423 yards per game. They're outgaining foes by 83 yards per game. They're running the ball for 135 yards per carry. And their defense on the season holding teams to 81 yards per game and 2.6 yards per carry. No one talks about this Pitt D, but I have it as a top 35 defense. The way they're playing. They have fluttered a little bit late. They did give up 445 to NC State at home, but I'm going to say this. I would not bet Pittsburgh full game. But I do like their offense. I've watched them a few times, and I think they'll get an early bump here. So for me, I might be looking at Pittsburgh first quarter or first half. You look at the last couple weeks. First half against Stanford, 21-13 they led. First half against NC State, they led 31-21. First half against Syracuse, they led 17-7. First half against Boston College, they led 31-0. And in that loss against Louisville, they led Louisville 27-17 at the half before getting outscored in the second half. I'm just talking myself into Pittsburgh first half.
All right, there you go. Sometimes you just need to say it. Yes, Ross, I see you throwing the hand up.
Again, going back to Narduzzi's comments, if you take that literally, you're foolish. All the point he was trying to make was it doesn't matter if we get blown out here. You're making this game look way larger than it should be for us because whether we lose by 1 or 100, our chances are still the same of winning the ACC and getting to the college football playoffs. Certainly, he's not saying that Pittsburgh's not coming ready to play.
Yeah,
absolutely. But who used to say that all the time, and he was actually legit. He didn't give a shit about his non-conference games. Was it Dickey at North Texas when they ran the Sun Belt? They got to a bowl every time, and there was only like one bowl. He would just say his non-conference schedule. They had to schedule a lot of Power 5 teams to make money because they didn't have the oil money and all that. And there's a lot of Sun Belt teams that have to schedule a lot of Power 5 teams and just don't give a shit, especially if that game is the week before a Sun Belt game. So for lesser conferences, coaches have said that, and they do mean it, because they're going to lose anyway. They're a 40-point dog. Their priority is to stay healthy for the opening Sun Belt game.
And they get a big paycheck.
While I agree you would never believe it in this kind of role, there are times when you are undermanned in a much smaller conference early in the season with a conference game on deck where they have said it and it does occur.
Yeah, we're talking about national title aspirations here. For both teams, right?
Where you're hosting ESPN Game Day. Let me see. You're going to be prepared for that game.
Yes. Checking in with our chat here. Financially free and focused. I think that's what we're all striving to be in this life. He likes the over 55. I talked to a sharp bet earlier in the week. He actually agrees with that. So that might be a look as well.
I think, too, to Ralph's point about Pittsburgh's run defense, they're going to be facing a very balanced Notre Dame offensive attack. They could beat you both with the two running backs that I mentioned that, by the way, have rushed for over 1,500 yards and scored 26 touchdowns combined. And the emergence of C.J. Carr, it presents a whole different challenge in my estimation.
I think Notre Dame's top 5 team in the country right now. Those 2 losses were both close. They botch an extra point against A&M. They were earlier in the year. I think A&M can play with anybody right now. Or pardon me, Notre Dame can play with anybody right now. All right, last game on the rundown, and then we're going to talk a little bit what we've got going on this weekend, and then we're going to get to your guys' questions in the chat and some best bets after that. Last game I wanted to put on the rundown, it doesn't involve any top 25 teams, but I thought it was a very interesting game because it's Penn State and Michigan State. There's a lot. This is just a fun one to handicap, okay? My numbers say Penn State should be favored by more than this. But, of course, this has been a disastrous season for Penn State, all right? And they are coming off a game where they laid it all on the line against Indiana. They lose at the end on maybe one of the greatest catches any of us have ever seen. And now they're laying points on the road against Sparty, who is rested. Now, if things have not been going swimmingly in East Lansing, and they just had about 14 wins revoked by the NCAA as well. I don't know if that's going to do anything. That was obviously a prior coaching staff. I don't know if that means anything to Jonathan Smith. But this, to me, Ross, it's spot versus power ratings. My power ratings say that, hey, at 7, there's value on Penn State. But yeah. But the spot screams Sparty. So help me out here.
Yeah, this is a game that I'm not going to even come close to touching. So I can't help you out, unfortunately. But, you're talking about a Penn State team on a long losing streak as a 7-point favorite on the road against another team on a long losing streak. And yet the suspensions are from when Mel Tucker was in charge over at Michigan State. So, look, the only thing I say, coming off a tough loss, not only are they coming off a tough loss, they played Ohio State the week before. So they played 2 excellent teams that are 1-2 in the country the last 2 weeks. And they held their own against Indiana. I mean, again, and they showed a lot of moxie to me because they fell behind 20-10 in that game and they roared back. So I have a small lean here toward Penn State. Only because they've shown, despite playing with a lame duck coaching staff right now, and facing 2 tremendous opponents the last 2 weeks. And the week before, they played at Iowa and only lost 25-24. So this is a team that's still competing and still trying hard. I think Michigan State is horrible. I think you brought that up, Brian, before, and I agreed with you then, and I agree with you now.
Yeah, Ralph, Jonathan Smith, I don't know how much it was expected. I don't think people thought this was going to be a quick turnaround in East Lansing, but it's not going well there. This is a horrible football team, to paraphrase Ross Benjamin there. They're not good. I don't know. What do you do here? I just think this is a fascinating game to handicap.
Yeah, if you were the devil and you hated some kid, you would probably do the Penn State schedule. So remember, Aller gets hurt, right? Yes. So Grunkmeyer comes in. Grunkmeyer's first 3 games ever as a starter at Iowa, at Ohio State, and versus Indiana, 3 top 10 defenses. He's probably thinking, "Holy shit, this is amazing! I don't have to face a top 10 defense." So we have no idea how good he is. He might come out and throw 35 or 40 after having those 3 defenses in your first 3 starts. So that's the unknown for me. Just not knowing that. And remember, the Michigan State side, Charles is banged up too. We're not sure who's going to quarterback there. I lean under because, again, you've got a quarterback. He's only played 2 road games against top 10 teams, then Indiana, and now he's playing another team on the road against a Michigan State team. You're going to either have a banged-up quarterback or a backup quarterback. Both are going to run the ball more than they lose. No interest in the spot with 2 quarterbacks banged up, but I will lean the under because of that.
All right, a couple things here. Number one, I see Ethan Bainbridge in our chat. Ethan, he was kind enough to meet Adam Trigger and I out. I know he follows Michigan State very closely. He met Adam Trigger and I out at the Bowling Green Lemoyne basketball game, because where else would Adam Trigger and I be on an NFL Sunday than watching Lemoyne versus Bowling Green in college basketball? So nice to see you there, Ethan. Also, remember with Michigan State, okay, this is a team that's covered 3 in a row, but 2 of those were real Jim Morrison backdoor man specials, as real
Jim
backdoor
Morrison reference.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I don't get that one, Brian. What's a Jim Morrison?
Jim Morrison's was
that's
the
a Doors song,
backdoor
man. I'm a backdoor man.
He
wasn't talking about covering the spread, though. I'll tell you that much. Okay. He wasn't talking about covering the spread, was he, Ross?
No,
he was not. All right, he was talking about covering something else.
There.
Yeah, that's
the other thing is, Brian, too, and I'm surprised Ralph didn't bring this up. You look at both teams are 0-6 in conference play, but Penn State, in those 6 losses, their margin of losses are only by a little over 6 points a game, where Michigan State getting outscored by 15 a game. So again, it goes back to the competitive nature of how Penn State's playing compared to Michigan State, even though they lost by 3 last week, like you alluded to.
Well, just to give you another misleading stat to throw in the mix there, Ross, while Penn State is better scoring versus the Big Ten, in conference action, they're getting outgained by 92 yards per game, and Michigan State's getting outgained by 60 yards. So a 32-yard edge to Michigan State yardage-wise.
Yeah, and guys, just if you go back a few weeks, Michigan State, I thought they were in a great spot when they faced UCLA, when UCLA was off that big upset of Penn State. Michigan State was here at home. That was one of the single worst performances any college football team has turned in this season, when they lost 38-13 to UCLA here at home. So I know the spot screams Sparty, but they're a hard team to back there. All right. That is our rundown. It is complete. We will be getting to your questions in just a moment, but it is time for Ross, myself, and Ralph to tell you what we've got going on this weekend at wagertalk.com. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the Weekend Warrior Pass. It has become a very popular option for all of you who regularly visit wagertalk.com. You get Ralph is making a big X. I'll let him comment on why in just a little bit. But hey, $49, you get all of the college, your favorite handicapper. Pick one of us. You can pick all 3. You can pick other handicappers as well. But for $49, you get a complete college football card for Saturday, complete NFL card for Sunday, and as an added bonus, no extra charge, we'll throw Monday Night Football in as well. Guys, it's been a great start to the week in college football. It's been a great start to the month. Now 9-2, a red-hot 82% in CFB. That is number 1 right now in college football in November. Maction. Remember, I am a proud Mac graduate, and we have shown why this week. $5 Tuesday, we had Western Michigan beating the alma mater, Ohio University. I don't play favorites. I just bet who I think is going to win. And then last night, as I mentioned earlier, Central Michigan, no doubt about it. I said Buffalo was headed for regression, and they were. They turned the ball over 5 times. We'd love to see it. So 2-0 this week in college football, 9-2 to start November. I got a 4% best bet already up for Friday, and then we're going to have at least 4 plays up for Saturday. So join me, please. WT.buzz/BP. Ralph, since you were making that X frantically when I was talking, I want to know what that was about. I'm going to let you have the floor next.
All right. Well, you are correct. The Weekend Warrior is a great deal at $49. But this week's special,
yes,
a 7-day all access is $99. You're getting 3 free days. That's like a free $69 pass. So let's do some math, guys. You could buy Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 2 football weekends and the entire week of NBA, college basketball, and NHL for $99. It's an absolute no-brainer. My college football, I have a 5% already loaded. So as soon as you buy that Weekend Warrior or the 10-day special, you'll get my 5% for Saturday. College football 5%, 3-0, and 12-2, 86%. College football overall, 18-7, 72%, and 45-22, 67%. Number 1 over the last 5 weeks. Doesn't matter who you get on this panel, guys. I've learned a lot from being on the show with them. They've taught me a lot, and all three of us are battling for the lead there in the college football season.
And then they call him the boss for a reason. Ross, Why don't you talk to the people about what you got cooking this weekend?
Well, thank you for that kind comment. I think I could speak for Bryan on that, Ralph, but I feel equally as blessed to be sharing the panel with you two gentlemen, as I've learned a lot from both of you as well. College football, number 2 overall this year with a 40 plus 41.87 units, 28-16, 63.6%. Number 1 in win percentage, number 1 in return on investment. So in one shape or another, all three of us are number 1 in some capacity when it comes to college football. On top of that, folks, last weekend, I had probably my worst weekend of college football, NFL combined. But that just means I'm going to bounce back because I went 7 weekends in a row, I think, maybe 6 or 7, where I made a profit on the Weekend Warrior package. So I'm going to bounce back this week. On a positive note, I hit both my 5% best bets on Saturday in college football and on Sunday in the NFL. So my college football 5% best bets right now are at 8-2 for the season, folks. That's 80%. And then NFL college football combined since September 11th, 43-29, 60%, up over 36 units. And the NBA off to a great start as well, guys. 9-4 this season. And going back to last year, I'm on a 23-9 NBA run as well. College basketball, the more the season develops and I see more out of these teams, the more I'll up the ante in terms of units per game and volume of plays. So there you have it. You can't $49 Weekend Warrior special. Can't beat that with a stick. Or like Ralph said, that 7-day all access pass being bumped up to 10 days. That's a steal.
Full weekend for 49, 10 days for 99. You choose, guys. Everyone, please one. All 3 of us this weekend at wagertalk.com. And if you are interested in college basketball talk, I would be remiss that I talk an hour a day about college basketball with Adam Stricker and Rob Vino live 10 a.m. Eastern full court press. And we dive deep into the card. You're not getting that kind of analysis anywhere else, dare I say. Gooseballs, I saw you in the goose. What, is this what my career's come to? I'm Gooseballs is what I'm saying. But he was asking about that Iowa USC game. We did talk about it earlier. We all did not like. We all kind of, I think the consensus was, did not like the spot for Iowa. But Dan, I believe we do have some questions here from the people. Sean Burley, Mizzou. This line makes no sense. He's using your phrase there, Ross. Mizzou seems like a fishy line to me. Is this a Ross? This line makes no sense. Mizzou, obviously down to its 3rd-string quarterback. Some people said he was going to be good. He did not look good against Texas A&M last week. So any thoughts on Missouri hosting Mississippi State?
I tell you, I do that segment every week where this line, whatever the segment I do where it looks fishy or whatever the case may be. But I couldn't find anything in college football this week that fell under that category. I actually had to revert to the NFL for the first time. So, if that's the way you feel, then you should take on a contrarian mindset, because if you say the line seems fishy, you don't know why one team is favored or underdog by as much as they are. And in those situations, if you use a contrarian approach, I would say that more times than not, if you're an avid sports bettor and you have some experience, more times than not, you'll be right.
Okay. Ralph, I don't know if you had anything on Missouri, Mississippi State.
Yeah, I am just going to say this. You look at Mississippi State's defense, and they are absolutely horrific. In conference-only games, guys, they're number 127, allowing 471 yards per game. They're allowing 6.32 yards per carry in SEC games. That is number 116. And they're allowing 38 points per game. That's number 121. No way in hell am I going to bet one of the worst defenses in college football in conference action, playing Missouri, one of the best defenses, no matter how many points I'm getting. That's just, you talk about defensive dogs and betting teams on the road that have defense. One thing I've learned is I stay away from horrendous defenses on the road against a good defense.
All right. Give me that. I'll take this Jacksonville State question, Dan, from Jay Buff. All right, Jay. By the way, happy belated Veterans Day, Jay Buff. Always nice to see you here in the chat. He says, I know you will say better games out there, but I really like Jack State this weekend. Any opinions? Look, Jacksonville State, for those of you who don't know, they're playing Kennesaw State. Here's my answer to you, Jay Buff. Last week was the time to play against Kennesaw State for sure. I thought, and I talked about it on the Power 5, I was not ready to live in a world where Kennesaw State was a 10-point road favorite against a Division I team. Now, they got off to a huge early lead against New Mexico State, and I looked pretty foolish. But New Mexico State, they were able to sneak in through the back door, give Kennesaw State a little bit of a taste of its own medicine. Again, Kennesaw did end up with a 427, 316 yard edge and had the 24-0 lead in Las Cruces last week. But that was after a game against UTEP, which the fact that anyone who watched, and I know there's like 6 of you out there who, other than me, that watched Kennesaw State and UTEP a couple Tuesdays ago. But that was one of those fraudulent covers in the history of mankind that Kennesaw State covered. So, Jay Buff, to answer, it would be Jacksonville State. Or pass for me on this one. Obviously, I have no. This Kennesaw State team, I think, is pretty fraudulent. Ralph, I see you.
Brian, let me just quantify that. They've in conference play, they basically have played the same schedule: 124 and 128. Kennesaw State is number 16 at plus 1.123 yards per game. Jacksonville State is number 76, getting outgained. So that says Kennesaw State, but. Raise your hand if on the bingo card you had the second week in November and these are the 2 undefeated teams in CUSA.
I know it's pretty crazy. The Conference USA is wild, and so is the Sun Belt, which will be my contribution to our best bet segment, which is coming up in just a minute. Do we have anything else here, Dan, for us? Oh, Miami and NC State. I agree with the line move on this game. I think Miami's taken a little bit of money. I know it's Cristobal. I know laying points with Mario Cristobal makes you. We talked about feeling uneasy earlier in the program watching certain games, and I know laying points with Mario Cristobal certainly will give you an uneasy feeling for 3 hours. But look, I know there's a lot of talk about the ACC this week. There has been a lot of talk about the ACC this week. What a mess it is. My opinion is Miami's by far the best team in this conference, but they may not get a chance to play for the conference title because of their 2 losses as a double-digit favorite. They're not losing here to NC State. I think it's Hurricanes or pass for me.
Yeah, I have a small lean toward North Carolina State in this game. I mean, they showed me a lot against Georgia Tech, especially offensively. Yes, Miami is a much better defensive team than Georgia Tech is. However, this is better than 2 touchdowns. So give me North Carolina State as a small lead here, Ralph.
I really have no opinion in this game. Okay. He was just throwing it to me, but I don't have any opinion here, so they'll have to go with your 2 opinions and make their choice.
All right. And one more, and then we'll get to the best bets. There's nothing I like more than a hold your nose special. That's always those are near and dear to my heart. I had a couple of those last week with Stanford and Iowa State. South Carolina plus 19.5. Is Texas A&M? When are they going to have a bad performance, Ross? Yeah. Ever? Because that's who the Gamecocks are playing here.
Yeah, I don't ask bad teams to do good things for me, especially against a red-hot team with a lot to play for. Yeah, I mean, it's 19.5, and yes, when's Texas A&M going to have a flat spot, Brian? You're right. Game I'm going to stay away from.
Yeah, the only comment I want to add there is you look at Texas A&M, they have not played anyone. Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, Florida at home, Arkansas with their number 135 defense, LSU with their number 135 offense, and then Missouri with a freshman quarterback making his first start. They have not been tested except that Notre Dame game. So, if anyone punches them early, it could be a live betting situation because they have not been under that pressure because they've blown everybody out because of their schedule. So coming down again. They only have South Carolina, then they have Samford next week before they go to Texas. But I'm not a huge Texas fan this week, but I'll look ahead to play A&M against Texas because that'll be the most complete team they've played in the SEC.
That's going to be very interesting. I'm very interested what the line's going to be for that Texas A&M game. All right, guys, we're up against the hour, so now it is time to do our best bets. Mentioned Veterans Day just came by. I was very happy. We always support the troops around here. I was very happy last Saturday when Army decided to take that knee inside the 10 and not screw the cover up because my best bet on the show last week was Temple +7, and that was very much on the precipice in that last minute. Let's go to the Sun Belt here, and let's talk about Coastal Carolina and Georgia Southern. This Coastal Carolina voodoo needs to end, okay? I don't know where this has come from. I have been shocked. I hesitate to use the term appalled, but I am stunned how well Coastal Carolina has played the last 4 weeks. But I think the voodoo ends this Saturday in Statesboro. Shout out to the Allman Brothers Band. That's where they're from. 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Georgia Southern last Thursday, they were a nice winner for me, +5.5 against another Sunbelt fraud, App State. That result for us was never really in doubt, having taken the points. Georgia Southern gets out to a 19-0 lead at halftime. It was a wire-to-wire cover. Eagles only ended up winning outright by 2 points in that game because they had to settle for 4 field goals. I think it could have and probably should have been a much bigger win at App State. Regardless, this Georgia Southern offense gang has now scored 24 points in 6 of its last, at least 24 points in at least 6 of its last 7 games. Meanwhile, Coastal Carolina, they have come back from the depths, obviously, to win and cover 4 in a row, 3 straight 40-plus point efforts. I'm as shocked as anybody. 3 outright wins as underdogs. I'm not buying it. This is a team, prior to last week, had not been favored over a single FBS opponent all season. Even with this recent surge, guys, they're still the Chanticleers being outgained by an average of 80 yards per game. So eventually the market will catch up. It always does. I will gladly lay a short number here with Georgia Southern against Coastal Carolina as my best bet. Ross Benjamin, you are up next.
I hope you don't have the Statesboro Blues after that pick.
There we go. All right.
Ralph, so you know, that's the Allman Brothers are from Statesboro, Georgia, like Brian just said. And Statesboro Blues was one of their hit songs. So in any event, last week, these guys made a little bit fun of me because I was selecting a lower profile game, which I normally don't do. They do, and they do it very well. But I had Middle Tennessee and FIU over the total of 51.5. 56-30 was the final score. So congratulations to all of you out there who followed my advice on this game. I'm going to look at Texas and Georgia. Like I said, I promised you a winning total in this game, and that's just what I'm going to do. Right now, I'm looking at 49.5 pretty much across the board for a total. This game opened at 47, so the over is getting some money in this game. Look, again, Texas 8-3 to the under in true away games since 2023. And Texas also defensively, they slouched off a little bit over the last 4 weeks. When you look at their entire body of work, they're only allowing 16.4 points per game, 314 yards per contest, 4.7 yards per play. And that includes allowing just 78.2 yards per game on the ground. And like I alluded to at the top when we discussed this game, that's important because they're very good against the run. And Georgia runs the ball over 57% of their offensive plays. They average around 198 yards per game. Now, going back to Ralph's season averages, I think there's no way Georgia's going to be held to 78 yards or less what Texas is allowing, but I think they'll be allowing a lot less than their season average. Let's put it that way. And then Texas, again, I spoke about this earlier as well. Their inability to run the ball is a glaring weakness offensively, and Georgia's defense stops the run. So, again, this may make Texas one-dimensional, and we've seen through the course, even though we've seen Arch Manning play much better of late, we've still seen with Texas when they fall behind in games and they have to be one-dimensional, they struggle a bit. So I like this game to be a low-scoring affair. These teams did meet twice last year, once in the regular season, once in the SEC title game. And those games combined for just 43 points per game and just a combined 604 yards of total offense between both teams. So I'm looking for something similar on Saturday night. This game's nationally televised on ABC. Texas, Georgia, under 49.5 for me, guys.
All right, that's 2 legs, 1 more to go. Ralph, we're in our chat. We're getting requests for one of your charts. People are offering money. I don't know if you have any information on that. If you want, I'm assuming you don't want to give your home address out on live television here, but that's something that financially free and
just just go ahead and drop by BP's house. His address is 317. Drop off the money there, and now he'll just Venmo me.
Yeah, Joe Ranieri's house. He lives where LeBron used to live down in Miami. Take it from me. Anyway, go ahead, Ralph. You're like at the parlay.
You're going to have to be the judge, Brian, if Ross has a more high-profile game or I do. Because I am, of course, going to Muncie, Indiana, with Eastern Michigan being an away favorite at Ball State. So, I'll have to get the Mac. I'll have to get Mr. Mac's approval on this game after what you did to your customers this week, giving them 2 Mac winners. To me, it's just, how have you played recently down the stretch? You look at Ball State's last 4 games. Shutout against Western Michigan, 42-0. Go to Northern Illinois, you lose 21-7. So your offense in those 2 games put up 350 yards total. You did beat Akron, you did beat Kent State, both were at home, Akron and Kent State. We know they're not at the bottom of the MAC, but talent-wise, they're still near the bottom of the MAC. I look at Eastern Michigan in their last 4 games. They outgained Bowling Green by 126 yards. The last 4 weeks, they're only getting outgained by 22 yards compared to Ball State getting outgained by 144 yards. Now, I will say this. This game I used as a wise guy play, and I'm not sure it's going to get to my card just because Eastern Michigan has not won a road game this year. Now, they were a dog against Texas State. They went to Kentucky. They went to Central. They went to Buffalo and lost by 1, and they lost to 14 by Miami. So if it's the final road game and you have yet to win a road game, you do have to put some caution to the wind. But against this competition in Ball State, I trust Chris Creighton with a quarterback who's playing well. Kim has a 15-6 ratio. He's completing 62%, and they have been able to run the ball a little more down the stretch. Eastern Michigan for me.
There you go. All right. Throw it up on the screen. Dan, do you have a graphic? Oh, he does. Of course he does. That's what Dan does. He's always getting it done for us. Ross, boss, likes Georgia, Texas under 49.5. And then in some lesser action, although, hey, the money's green no matter what game you cash on, guys. Ralph likes Eastern Michigan minus 2.5 against Ball State in some Saturday action. And then I am going with Georgia Southern minus 2.5 against Coastal Carolina. That is it for the Blitz. Thank you for joining us, guys. Thank you to Ross and Ralph, as always, for helping carry me through the hour. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned. I'll tweet out because I believe do I have this right? Is next week I'm so screwed up today, Ralph? Is next week Thanksgiving or is that in 2 weeks? Somebody
following week.
Okay, so don't listen. Okay, so I'm getting so excited about eating, Dan, that I jumped ahead of myself.
Christmas is on Tuesday, by the way, Brian.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right. If we weren't going to get sued, I would tell Dan to play whipping post right now, but I don't want to get sued. For Ralph, for Ross, see you next week, guys.